two things that we know is that black people have some of the worst stereotypes that somehow, some way, unfortunately happen to be true consistently more often than not. And while that may be a little bit of an exaggeration, it kind of isn't. This video is definitely going to be crass with harsh language. If you can't handle that, I'm not sorry. Asians are smart.
Come on, do math.
Hispanics are hard workers.
No.
Indians own businesses.
What do you do, sir? Manage hotels, you motherfucker. What's your last name, Patel? I told you.
And white people are allegedly perfect on everything except food. Why are you putting raisins in potato salad? But black people are, I'm sorry, niggas are these fucking hypersexual, uncivilized and violent, plain out uneducated, only useful to society when helping out the superior race, angry, addicted, welfare abusing, dishonest, no job keeping ass thugs who can't swim unless it's a pool full of grape soda. Oh, and we're pretty good at sports.
There's like a civil war going on with black people, and there's two sides. It's black people and there's niggas.
You ever notice how the most celebrated stories, the ones that we call the most real, the most authentic, are the ones where everybody ends up in jail, dead, or staring at the ceiling of a psych ward? And we call that art. We call that keeping it real. So why do black people receive all these monikers? Because sometimes, unfortunately, it is true. Not to sound all Christians hard it up or whatever, but like even the addiction part, the big lips of African Americans called to the crack pipe like a return phone call. Even illicit drugs, they were literally dropped into black neighborhoods and given recognition as something cool to do or even sell, all because of some random 3-letter agencies that wanted to make a little bit extra money. They pulled black families apart via substance and then following with a system after those who were ingesting said illicit drugs would be arrested and booked for possession, intent to sell, or distribution, then leaving broken homes where the homemaker is now gone for 5 to 25 years. A secondary homemaker, more often than not, a single woman would end up strung out on drugs or with the provider of said drugs because of the aforementioned notoriety and street cred and safety that came from that in our very, very fucked up neighborhoods. All of that became a survival paradigm in the black community. And the cycle repeats itself when the kid grows up and feels like that is their only option and now gets booked for 5 to 25 years, repeating a cycle. And for years, I kind of just had to accept it. I was thinking, I'm like, yeah, it's nihilistic and dark, but it is the unfortunate reality that a lot of black individuals go. But then you start reading the same books that they try to keep us away from, the same documents that are hidden on government websites, and you find out that this isn't a preference, it's a symptom. It's not a bug in the culture, it's a feature of the system that it was built in. Because for a century, for longer than a century, there's been this deal on the table called respectability politics. And the pitch in itself is very simple. Act right, talk like us, dress like us, pull your pants up, be one of the good ones, and we'll let you in to our domain.
Toby be good nigga for massa. Good nigga.
It's just a strategy, right? It's a public relations campaign to prove that you're worthy of not being shot or put in jail. And it's just a response to the stereotypes, you know, those ones mentioned earlier. And the crazy part is that these stereotypes feel so very, very real, even though statistically speaking, they're bullshit. It's a cognitive glitch called the representativeness heuristic. It's your brain not trying to figure out what's common in a group.
Black people,
It's picking out what it's wired to see, which is distinctive.
there's niggas.
It's why people think all Irish people have red hair. They don't, but because red hair is more common in Ireland than anywhere else, the brain latches onto it as a defining trait. It magnifies this tiny kernel of truth into fact, into a caricature of this is and nothing else is. It's the mental shortcut that leads you lost in the woods driving off of a fucking cliff. Bro, only 10% of Ireland has red hair, but you see the Lucky Charms and the Sinner's representation and yes, all Irish people are drunkards in the pub with red hair. So while you're trying to be a good little Negro playing by the rules, their brain is still running on this programming that flags you as a threat.
Is he a thug?
What do you mean by thug?
Does he look like a thug? Like,
I mean, you don't look like a scholar.
I, as a black man from the suburbs in the richest black majority county in the United States, still deal with racial biases. Don't let me go 15 to 30 minutes south to go to a department store if I just came from the gym with a do-rag and a black shirt on. Somehow that random guy with an earpiece is in my aisle wherever I go and still somehow has not grabbed a single fucking item yet.
Get your black ass down!
And here's the real punchline, because even when you play the game perfectly, you will still get screwed over. Our grandfathers tried it, 1.2 million of them served in a segregated military, got sent to war zones, came home heroes, and got to watch their white squad mates cashing on the GI Bill. Only one of the many examples where the government didn't just let this happen. They designed it this way. In 1947, Mississippi, the VA backed over 3,000 loans for white vets. And you know how many they gave to black vets? 2. The families of white vets ended up with, on average, 32 times the wealth of black veteran families. They were told to buy a house, build wealth, so the government got out its red crayon and its little map. And this is the part where people got wrong. It wasn't just private banks being racist, it was the government. De jure segregation by law. The Federal Housing Administration's own 1938 underwriting manual, their literal rule book said, and I quote, "If a neighborhood is to retain stability, it is necessary that property shall continue to be occupied by the same social and racial classes. Keep the people who are benefiting from the system benefiting, but don't allow any growth from any other socioeconomic class by any means necessary." They called black people incompatible racial elements. It's in writing.
I like running through white people neighborhoods with my shirt off.
I'm gonna steal all your stuff.
So when the quote-unquote respectable path is a dead end and the game was rigged from the box you opened, what do you have to celebrate? You start celebrating people who just decided to flip the fucking table over. And when we built our own tables and succeeded by any means necessary, we were punished for it. Not just by law, but by literal firebombs. You think I might be exaggerating, that I'm being facetious? Let me put on my leather coat and put my fist up and explain what the fuck was actually going on.
You're aware that a Negro family has moved into Levittown?
Yes, I heard about it.
What was your reaction?
Dynamite.
Seneca Village, New York City, 1857. A thriving community of black landowners raced to build Central Park. This wasn't even a slum, it was a middle-class village of churches, schools, and property owners, a status that gave black men the rare right to vote. The city used eminent domain, slandering the community as a fucking shanty town to justify bulldozing it for a park that now has homeless people shitting in the pool. Wilmington, North Carolina, 1898. A coup d'etat. This is the only successful violent overthrow of a government in US history. A white supremacist mob, angry about a biracial, democratically elected government, stormed the city, killed dozens of black citizens, and forced the elected officials to resign at gunpoint, then burned down the state's only black-owned daily newspaper. Tulsa, 1921. They didn't just riot, they brought in private planes to drop dynamite on Black Wall Street, a 35-block district with an economic engine where a single dollar could circulate dozens of times. The total loss is over $200 million in today's money, wiped off the map simply because they were too successful. And the one that you've probably heard of, the Move bombing, Philadelphia, 1985. The government dropped a C-4 bomb from a helicopter onto a row house, let 11 people, including 5 children, burn to death, and they destroyed 61 homes. A military strike on American soil. This was only 40 years ago, but there's a cost. There's always a cost. This isn't just about economics or physical infrastructure. This is physiological and psychological damage. Post-traumatic slave syndrome has been talked about before. The idea that trauma gets passed down not just in stories, but through our nervous system. The same way that your parents can pass on anxiety or weight issues or diabetes, just like any other genetic trait. They can also pass on traumatic triggers. But then there's a day-to-day damage. There's this thing I found out about called stereotype threat. It's the fear of confirming a stereotype about your group. A fear that literally eats up your brain power. A black student taking a test framed as a measure of intelligence may underperform because part of their brain is busy fighting off the anxiety of being judged. It's like having to run a marathon with a bag full of bricks that nobody can see, but those bricks were placed 100, 200, 300 years ago. If you're a black Israelite, those bricks were promised to you 4,000 years ago.
Would you let a Jew work out in your gym without paying if he claimed that the membership was promised to him by God 4,000 years ago?
One study found that for black medical students, the rate of stereotype threat, the vulnerability to it is 82%. And that's compared to only 4% for white counterparts.
Go check out the hood, dog.
That's not just pressure, that's a cognitive tax that you pay every day, even though you have the accolades, achievements, and debt to prove so.
You think about how many black people that have gone through a whole lot of surgery and everything because somebody saw this bluish discoloration inside their mouth. That's normal.
After already dealing with people not taking your concerns seriously as a patient all the way through your life, you come into this field with a higher level of understanding and empathy, and that's still not enough.
I know that it's a certain relationship that we share and a certain kind of trust, and I think that this is the kind of thing that we got to realize that, you know, that black people got to start taking care of black people because they understand black people better than anybody else.
So that I don't give a fuck attitude, that nihilism, that darkness, it's not an aesthetic, it's a coping mechanism. It's a Purple Heart you award yourself for surviving a war most of the country pretends isn't happening while understanding that it's always going on.
I'm being treated like a black person right now.
Because we all understand the inherent drawbacks that outweigh the good parts of it. You're not a good Negro, you're just a nigga in a suit, but we will use you for capital gain. The performance of progress. After George Floyd, what do we get? Blackout Tuesday. Companies, corporations posting black squares. Performative activism. It's activism as a fashion accessory. It gives you the idea, the feeling of doing something that is actually activism that's going to help without actually having to go through the inconvenience of actually doing something. The Black Fist icons, the Black History Month profile picture, the black square was posted was not companies actually caring, it was them saving their ass. And while it did work to make them seem more community driven, we were all just waiting to see when they would actually give it up. And all that performance did was create a giant easy target. It created the DEI backlash. All that corporate woke washing gave political grifters every single bit of ammo they needed to attack any and every instance of trying to create any sort of equity. So now DEI is a dirty word. They're just putting the whole program into a witness protection program after acting like they cared with performative activism. And granted, these societal issues force us to act certain ways, to live certain ways, to unfortunately fill stereotypes or create new ones. And that's where my issue changes from the society to the Black community, because as a community, we tend to let a lot of bullshit slide, or we will unknowingly reinforce the stereotype. The media perpetuates hypersexuality, drug use, and all other manner of stereotypes that were mentioned here, which then makes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But when I point out the negative aspects and degeneracy of my own community that are completely unrelated to what society has done in the past, I'm a coon. If I point out that the Black community is perpetuating stereotypes in media, I'm shucking and jiving for the white man. It's this insane catch-22 where pointing out the negative aspects that can be fixed is now seen as betrayal of your community. It's a violation of some unspoken rule that we must be a united front at all costs, even when that united front is tearing us apart from the inside. When in reality, it's completely logical and expected to point out the negative aspects of your community that can be fixed. Yet I'm a fucking coon, right? You want to see your people do better, so you point out negative things that they do and poor actions, but you get ostracized for it. For example, we don't want to be seen as hypersexual deviants who eat fried chicken all day. And we get these two heathens who decide to make a music video outside of a KFC while rapping about getting nutted in and popping Plan Bs like Adderall, that she'd rather be outside being, in her own words, a hoe. There is a universe where being sexual is about reclaiming your own power and not letting other people deem you as one way versus another. But this isn't that shit. This is playing into the lowest common denominator, feeding the algorithm that already sees you as a caricature. And you're gonna tell me that this, and this don't reinforce the worst fucking stereotypes. You are twerking outside of a Kentucky Fried Chicken with Hennessy, flexing money, talking about your vagina. We don't only eat chicken and watermelon, but we'll kill somebody outside of a Popeyes over a fucking chicken sandwich.
Bottom of the barrel. Artists famous for putting out garbage.
But you can get hit, bitch. And yeah,
cut the shit off, bro.
I gotta
Cut the shit.
Then you've got the rappers who build careers promoting a lifestyle that would get their own fans addicted, in jail, or worse. Future and a dozen others glorifying popping pills and sipping lean, selling this fantasy of being a drugged out kingpin, while the kids who listen to them are still caught in the trap. They sell you the dream, go sell drugs, go do drugs, go carry a gun while going 130 on the dash with contraband in the car because it's cool. And for what? To chase money in a society that doesn't even respect you. You do everything to get this magic piece of paper because they told you this is what value is. This is what we use in our society. Then you finally get that dirty money and try to use it, yet you're still just a nigga in a suit and your money isn't even fucking welcome here. And then there's the most nihilistic feedback loop of all, which is the idolization of actual killers. We hold RIP concerts and sell murals for King Von, a man who wasn't just a rapper, he was an alleged serial killer who terrorized Parkway Gardens. His music was a literal real-time catalog of his violence, and his death didn't end the cycle, it canonized it. Crazy Story is literally the retelling of a drill. It gives the young ones the impression that this is how you get notoriety, by being a violent criminal who tells their story over 2 minutes of 808s. Look at Tay-K. Everybody knows Tay-K. This dude was on the run for capital murder, became a viral sensation, and gets turned into a folk hero. He's not a character. He's a kid facing a 55-year sentence. And we turn this real-life tragedy into a fucking meme. This isn't just art imitating life, it's life and death becoming a marketable aesthetic. And let's talk about the actual media, the movies, the TV shows, because that's where the feedback loop becomes cinematic and gets documented forever. Off the top of your head, without Google, name a show where the white main character is a drug kingpin. Don't say Ozark and don't say Breaking Bad. At least with those white main characters, they're called prestige television. It's a complex anti-hero character study. Now what happens when we tell those stories? We get Snowfall, Top Boy, The Wire, Godfather of Harlem, Raising Kanan. Great fucking shows, all of them. But it's a box that we keep letting ourselves get put into by choice. It's the only box that we're allowed to be kings of, and when it's not that, it's reality TV bullshit like Baddies and Bad Girls Club.
Y'all not gonna get a slip cause of me!
Putting black women as hypersexual, angry, and aggressive deviants. We literally have Black Panther, Atlanta, Raising Dion, brilliant, well-written stories that aren't about being a drug kingpin or about being some aggressive girl in the household, but they feel like exceptions that prove the rule. They're the anomalies, while the drug trade narrative and illicit activity is apparently the default setting for black prestige TV. It's a creative ghetto, and it's telling the entire world that these are the only types of stories that we have to offer.
Black entertainment television is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.
And you're gonna tell me that the middle school, high school age boy in my neighborhood with a $457,000 median home value, wearing a shiesty and fake clutching his fucking fanny pack, is just like that? That's just how he is? No, it's a consequence of the media.
Bunch of trifling, shiftless, good-for-nothing niggas.
That is not a symptom of the perpetuated nonsense that we have to deal with every single fucking day. No, it's literally conditioning that's perpetuated over and over, as if we can't do better as a collective. I get that these stories are important. To get where you're going, you have to know where you came from. You have to know what your destination is. They can be entertaining as fuck, but after a certain point, marinating in this trauma porn just becomes detrimental because we're sitting here complaining about why society doesn't respect us and view us higher, when all we're doing is showing them otherwise. It just feeds the stereotypes that we're trying to escape, planting seeds in the minds of the masses that this is all we are. We're constantly told our stories with this lens of society doesn't like you to begin with, and that locks you into an impossible fucking choice. It's a double bind. You wear a suit, you code switch, you play the game, you try to be a good nigga, and to them, you're still just a nigga in a suit.
Hello, monkeys.
A pet, a token maybe, a threat to be managed. But if you do it the wrong way and you embrace the aesthetic that they created for you, that we created for ourselves, the one they market and sell, and now you're just like the other niggas.
Get your black ass down!
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't, and the system is rigged where there's always something that they can point to that you're doing that is somehow a problem. So let's go back and make this full circle. So when we see these behaviors pedestalized, this performance of hardness, this nihilism, is it really an idolization of negativity? We're caught in this perfect self-sustaining feedback loop where the system builds a pressure cooker, redlines us into a corner, and hands us a script that says the only way to be valuable is to be a threat. So some of us play the part. Some of us perform the hardness, this masquerade that we do. We embrace the nihilism because it feels like the only way to win on this rigged chessboard.
Kind of retarded.
But then the culture industry, run by the same system, records it, markets it, and sells our trauma back to us as entertainment. And we buy it, we stream it, we celebrate it, we turn killers into folk heroes and dysfunction into an aesthetic. We do the system's work for it, proving our own worst stereotypes true over and over again. And that leaves us in the ultimate double bind because you try to play their game and you're a coon, you're a sellout, you're just a nigga in a suit. But you play the game they designed for you, and you're a thug who deserves to be in a cage. But as it appears on a day-to-day, there is no third option. There is no winning move. So the question isn't just, why do we celebrate this? There's a real question and a follow-up question of, how do we break the fucking loop? When the system profits from your pathology and your own culture sometimes glorifies it, where do you even begin to fight back? People say that Reagan won and the CIA is up 50, still trying to score. But they've been on autopilot for years, letting our offense and defense play the game against itself. What does a winning move even look like? What do you really act like without all this influence? What do you really aspire for without all this influence? What do you actually think?
You switched on. Jab, you switched on. When you throw the combination jab, slip, uppercut, backhand, roll.